Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. I'm right.
What do I
We're
have for a
live on
screen?
HCAM TV.
All right. So are we all set, Bob?
HCAM is all set.
Josh, we're good?
Yeah, looks good on my end.
Looks like we have a quorum. So I will call this meeting to order. The select board meeting for August 18, 2020. As a preliminary matter, this is Brendan Tedstone, select board chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Remember, call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Irfan Nasrullah? Not here yet. Brian Herr?
Here.
Mary Jo Lafreniere?
Here.
Amy Ritterbush?
Here.
And obviously I'm here. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Kamalu? He's not here yet. Miss Lazarus?
I'm here.
Okay. Additional speakers for the evening may include Sean McAuliffe, Steve Slamman, Rebecca LaPierre, Allison Rothenberg, Kyle Stark, Shane Cook, Robert Clark, Gary Trendell, Robert Benson, Muriel Kramer, Deb Feinbrug, Mary Larson Marlowe, Jane Moran, Dave Paul, Sundar Sivarman, Jared Prey, Curtis Smithson, Kelly Karp, Frandy Young, Gary Russell, Barbara Kessler, Tim O'Leary, Tom Garabedian, Connor Deegan, John Westerling, and Eric Cardy. If there's anyone attending that would like to speak during the public forum portion of the agenda, you must notify the meeting host in advance. You may do this while the board is in executive session. So I request a motion to enter executive session to discuss strategy with respect to construct negotiations with non-union staff, to consider the lease, sale, or value of real property in relation to the Upper Charles Trail, because the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board, to allow Norman Kamalu and Elaine Lazarus to participate in the discussion, and to reconvene an open session at the conclusion of executive session. So I request that motion.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. How do you vote? Mr. Nasrullah, are you on yet? Yep, there he is. He's on mute. So I'll circle back to him. Mr. Herr?
Herr, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Frenier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbush?
Ritterbush, yes.
Mr. Nasrullah?
Nasrullah, yes.
Okay, so we are going to leave Zoom and go to Google Hangouts. So for the people that are here for the meeting, if there are people here for the meeting, for the public session, open session, we will be back in half an hour or so. Thank you.
Did I make it?
All right.
Okay.
Let's see. Just give me a minute here. All right, so we are back from executive session. And before I open the meeting here, I would like to let everybody know if there's anybody attending that would like to speak during the public forum portion of the agenda, which is the agenda that we're going to start after I read this motion. You must notify the meeting host in advance. You may do so while the board is in executive session, so you can hit wave or anything that you need to do to get in touch with the meeting host. So, as a preliminary matter, this is Brendan Tedstone, Select Board Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Nasrullah. Is
Muted.
muted. Mr.
Yeah.
Herr.
Nasrullah is here, yes.
Okay. Mr. Herr.
Her here.
Ms. Lafreniere.
Frenier here.
Ms. Ritterbusch.
Ritterbusch here.
Tedstone, yes. This open meeting of the Hopkins Select Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we are complying with the executive order that suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The executive order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as the public body makes provisions through adequate alternative means to ensure interested members of the public are provided reasonable access to the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. For this meeting, the Select Board is convening by video conference via Zoom webinar as posted in the town's web meeting calendar and the board's agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also be broadcast by HCAM through one of its many channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some of the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We're now turning to the first agenda item. Before we do, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will invite board members to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in dialogue with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Not every agenda item will feature public comment. For the public forum portion of the agenda, the chair will work with the meeting host to call on each pre-registered to make their statement. Each speaker must begin by identifying their name and address. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes for their comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Pledge of Allegiance. Let's stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United
of the
States of America,
United States of America.
to the republic
Republic
for
for which
which
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
Indivisible,
liberty,
with
and
liberty and
justice.
justice for all.
Thank you. Public forum. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak? If so, please work with the host and allow each to speak. I believe the first person with his hand up is Mr. Kilduff. Josh, if you would liven up Mr. Kilduff's microphone, allow him to speak. Mr. Kilduff, I believe you're up. Mr. Kilduff, are you on mute, Mr. Kilduff?
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Several weeks ago, we shared the possibility of creating a 26.2-mile run within the borders of Hopkinton. We assembled a rather distinguished group of people to look at that idea. That included Sean McAuliffe, Chief Slayman, Kelly Grill from the Cultural Arts Center, Rick McPherson from the YMCA, and Peter Lagoy. Yesterday, I sent an email to Town Manager Kamalo, unfortunately telling him that after a serious amount of work and a fair amount of stubbornness on you-know-whose part, we finally came to the realization that out of respect for not just runners, but respect for our community and our residents, that to try to take this on with the new state guidelines would be a difficult challenge, and did not take into considerations everyone's public safety. So we sent a note to Mr. Kamalo yesterday announcing that decision. We'll make it public. I also included a communique that we have sent to the 65 runners who are running for what we call Team Inspire, and who have been out there raising money that will ultimately find its way back into Hopkinton. So it's with great disappointment that I share this news with you, and with great anticipation and hope that the 125th Boston Marathon will in fact be run in Boston next April. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your support.
Mr. Kilduff, as the chair of the select board, I know that I'm not allowed to get into it with anybody during, or even have much to say during public comment, but I want to say thank you to all the hard work that you've done trying to pull this off for the good, not just of the 26.2 Foundation, but for the good of the town of Hopkins and the good of the Boston Marathon. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have Mr. Nasrullah, do you want to read those letters, or do we want Bill to go first?
Give me a moment to find them. And,
All right, why don't we can have, Josh, why don't you liven up Bill, and then we'll go from there. Bill, you're on. You might be on mute, Bill.
I am. Good morning, members of the select board.
Good morning, Bill.
Good evening, actually.
Good evening.
I
Sorry.
am infuriated at the recent releases of sex offenders by the Massachusetts Bail Fund. This fund pays bail for offenders regardless of the type of crime accused of purposefully. The reason that this affects Hopkinton in particular is that the treasurer and director of this fund is a Hopkinton resident, Muriel Kramer. She is the one writing the checks to set these defendants free on bail without any regard for the seriousness of their crimes. Sean McClinton was a level 3 sex offender who went on to rape another woman. The most recent bail recipient is also a convicted level 3 sex offender whose crimes have been increasingly more violent. He currently has 23 known victims. Who else has the mass bail fund unleashed on Massachusetts communities? Carmel Cotton Landers, 25, is accused of shooting someone in the daytime on Boston Common in early April. When he was arrested, officers found a loaded firearm and ammunition. His bail was $85,000. Darren McFadden also has an extensive criminal history, including 60 cases in Suffolk County and a 3-year prison sentence for robbing someone at knife point. The bail fund paid his $2,500 bail on larceny and breaking and entering charges. Walker Browning is accused of robbing 5 women, 2 at knife point. David Prevet facing charges of holding up a gas station at gunpoint. Otis Walker, who has been held since late 2018 on 3 counts of child rape. Child rape, 3 counts. To knowingly aid these criminals is unconscionable. I call on Muriel Kramer to resign from her position on the planning board effective immediately, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Bill. Josh, I believe there's another hand up.
Okay, so I've located the email, the letters that were requested that I read, but they had requested anonymity, and I know that we have a requirement of identifying yourself prior to speaking. So I asked the board, how do we proceed?
So my thought process on this, assuming, and I'm not going to say this pretending I don't know what the letters are because they've been sent to us earlier.
Mhm.
Because of the subject matter that these people are writing about, being concerned about, and the fact that the gist is that they're concerned about if they do identify themselves by name and or address, they're afraid that the people that have been released from this mass bail fund would potentially come back. So the reason for anonymity seems to be based for the safety of themselves and their family as well as their work.
So I respect that, and I'm fine with reading their letters. I just want to make sure that the board is willing to waive the identity requirement.
No, I don't. I have a hard time with it. I mean, we make everybody else say who they are.
Well,
We just had Bill go, and I don't know who Bill is.
yeah.
Well, sorry, I tried to say, but I was muted. We should get Bill's name and address too.
Okay. So I am fine with the fact that with the subject matter and with the fact that the people are legitimate. I mean, they're concerned for our town, but they're concerned for our safety. So I think it shows bravery that they wrote the letter to begin with. And if we don't allow them anonymity, I think that we'd be doing our town somewhat of a disservice by not reading that. And
So through the
At the end of the
chair,
day, the letters have been submitted to the select board's office. The letters are a public document. And if somebody wants to go in and get the letter and get the name and go be a pain in their backside, they can do that. So it's not like we're hiding the name, but I don't think we have to run around screaming from the rooftop either.
through the chair, I mean, I would like us to have some sort of policy on this going forward, though. We received an anonymous email a couple of weeks ago as well. And I just want to make sure that we have set guidelines for when we feel letters can be read anonymously and when the people have to give their name, because I'm afraid people will start using it for all kinds of things. And I
Yeah,
think people
and
choose
I
their
think
words
it's-
more carefully.
yeah, so I think when it comes to if there's a legitimate concern for their safety, I think that this isn't someone from a Facebook group or an AOL chat group or someone like that they're going to make fun of them. This is someone that's concerned over someone who's now a free person on bail, who they're afraid for the safety of their family. So I'm not going to be the one to monopolize this. Just that's my thought on it.
I completely understand. Go ahead, Mr. Herr.
We're in public comment, so public comment should be public comment, and I'm not sure why we're going back and forth so much about all this. The fact that we have to debate whether or not we announce people's names in itself is extremely frustrating to me. why the community has to go through this is extremely frustrating to me. I think we should just get on with the public comment and run our meeting as we typically would and not debate how we do public comment.
Okay.
So in light of the feelings of the board and everyone else, I guess I would say that I shouldn't read those letters and would allow I mean, I think we should have a policy on this, and I think we should, kind of come up with a policy as to when we can and cannot read a letter anonymously. But I think given that the letter writers had requested anonymity, and it seems as though the board's consensus is that we do not read this without identifying them, then I would hesitate to read it and identify them when they ask for anonymity.
The writers asked that they be read. Why don't we just do what Bill did? Just use the first name, and if anybody wants to go to town hall and get the public document, they can. We can't prevent that from any of these letters.
That's
Can't
true.
hide any of these letters. So if we did our first name, and so we can get on with this and move on with our agenda.
I am just concerned because they came so late. The people who wrote them would probably be under the impression they wouldn't be read with their names at all. And I wish they wouldn't. If we'd gotten more advance notice, it could have been discussed more thoroughly.
Use their first name like Bill used his. I don't know who Bill is.
I'm okay with that. If everyone else is okay with that,
I'm all right
go
with
ahead and
that.
read it. Ms. Ritterbush, you okay with that? Just
I'm
the
a
first
little
name?
uncomfortable because they didn't want their names read, but I know every letter sent to town hall is a public record anyway. So
I'm uncomfortable too, but
Is this something that we could say for the next meeting, I guess, and consult with the letter writers?
I don't think so. I think that the subject matter here is pertinent and time sensitive, and we all know what the letters say, and I think we should read them and and just give the first name. No address, first name.
All right. So the first letter is from Laura. And she writes, Dear Select Board, in light of the association with the Massachusetts Bail Fund organization and its misuse support of violent criminals, I respectfully request that Muriel Kramer recuse herself from all Hopkinton boards at this time. The Mass Bail Fund charity has certainly strayed from their initial mission of assisting those who could not afford a $500 bail to now supporting releasing violent and repeat offenders into our communities. These offenders should not be afforded assistance for a second chance with murder, rape, and level 3 sexual offenses. The more I research, the more upsetting it is to see the lack of responsibility affect the victims' families and neighborhoods. Muriel Kramer is listed as the current treasurer and director, accountable for charitable distributions of contributions of the Massachusetts Bail Fund organizations. I strongly oppose this action of supporting violent criminals for any community and feel this lack of judgment puts Hopkinton and other towns at risk. For those reasons, I am requesting that Muriel Kramer step down from the Hopkinton Town Public Boards immediately. The next letter is from Keith. He writes, by now, I'm sure you're fully aware of the planning board member, Muriel Kramer, and her role in the Mass Bail Fund's release of a violent rapist, who then turned around and did the same heinous act again. Today, I heard about the release of a level 3 sex offender back into the neighborhood. While the acts of the alleged criminals is bad enough, aiding and abetting are equally condemnable in my eyes. What's even more upsetting is our own neighbor, Muriel, is the one writing the checks to fund a more dangerous world. As a former selectman and one who sits on a current board, she needs to be immediately relieved of her duties and prevented from ever holding a position in town again. This is not the character we want leading anything in this town. Unfortunately, unlike some of the social justice warriors whose schedules allows them to go door to door to sign petitions for whatever is the latest rage, parenthetical note the petition where they all screamed racist at townspersons that turned out wasn't a racial incident, end parentheses. I work long hours for my family to keep them healthy and safe. I hope there is something that can be done to address these disgusting acts by someone who is who is supposed to represent the people of Hopkinton in her planning board role. I just want to add that these are not my words. These are words of the public that wanted these letters read. Mr. Chair, I would also like to make a statement as a member of the public, not in my role as a select board member. If
Okay.
that is okay, I'm going to time myself for the usual 2
Oh,
minutes.
no, I got you. I got you on the clock. Everyone's on the clock. I would like nothing more than to shut you down.
All right, begin. So I just wanted to bring up an incident that happened this past weekend, where the town was celebrating, members of the town were celebrating India Day, and there was a disturbance. And I just want to commend the Hopkinton Police Department for how they handled it, how they de-escalated the situation, and how and how well everything was handled, including the person who interrupted and later apologized. I think that it was well handled all around, and I think that we have, I'm very proud of our police and our community and how it was handled. But I also want to add that, one of the issues was flying a foreign flag. And what I want to add to that is, there is a difference between being proud of being an American and being proud of your own cultural heritage. I am very proud of my Pakistani heritage, and I'm very proud of my American citizenship and my nationality. And I think every one of us in this community has foreign roots. We all came here, and we're proud of our foreign roots. We're proud of who we are, and we're proud of our country. That's what makes America great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nasrullah. That was very well spoken. So Josh, it looks like we have Hopkinton Resident 1. Hopkinton Resident 1, in order for you to read your letter, I would ask you to say your first name, your name. You don't have to use your last name if you don't want.
Okay, so my name is Anne, and I echo Bill. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I echo Bill's and the letter writer's sentiments because I have concern regarding a leader in our town, particularly a member of our planning board committee. So she's an officer within this Massachusetts bail fund, and she happens to be the one signing the checks, as mentioned before. And this charity has bailed out 2 high-level sexual predators already who are repeat offenders. So our town's full of children. It doesn't reflect upon our town, doesn't reflect well when we have a town leader involved in bailing out dangerous individuals. I do not feel comfortable that a town leader is making these decisions for our town by being part of the planning board when she's involved in freeing dangerous individuals, especially since our town is full of families. So it makes me question her judgment and how she basically makes decisions just by not even checking to see who would get aid from the bail fund. So I'm hoping, like what everyone else mentioned, I would hope that she would resign just because it showed that she lacked sound judgment by freeing sexual predators, highly dangerous sexual predators.
All right. Thank you, Anne. I appreciate it. I appreciate your candor, I guess. And Josh, is that it? Did we have anybody else?
Well, I would like to say something as a member of the public. Everybody is coming out against Muriel Kramer. This is her job. She's done a wonderful, wonderful job for the town. She's one of the nicest, kindest individuals that I know, and is the mother of 6 children. So I'm sure she's given a lot of her job a thought. The other thought is all of the criminals that have been given bail because they can afford it themselves, who are wealthy, who are out there for the same crimes. The whole system is not fair, and the whole system needs revamping from soup to nuts. And I can't say I like it, I don't, but let's not kill the messenger.
Mary Jo, Mary Jo, I can't have you go back and forth with this person. If
I'm
you want to
not
make a,
going back and forth with the person. I'm just
but
making a
you're
statement.
you're building on that other person's, you're
I'm
going on.
making a statement to the letters and
Okay,
to.
go ahead.
the
All right,
statement,
go ahead.
No, okay, that's it.
All
I
done?
think we're hanging somebody who's done a lot of really good things for the town because of her job.
Okay,
Could,
thank you.
I just wanted to add about if I could.
Yep.
Yep. So I was one of the select board member that attended the India Day on the Common this weekend. So I just wanted to go over that just briefly. And I was really glad that HCAM and the Independent were there so that they could take some neutral photos and everybody can watch with their own eyes and ears what happened. Anyway, it was a very small socially distanced event. I was there from the select board. Lisa Jackson was there from Parks and Rec. It had been approved by the Board of Health and Parks and Rec, and it was following social distancing guidelines and all the flag protocol guidelines. And the American flag was flown above the Indian flag throughout the entire ceremony, not on the same pole. The U.S. national anthem was sung first, followed by the Indian national anthem. And, you know, in previous years, they had a large event in Boston, but that wasn't possible. So they were doing these small events all over towns without large Indian populations like Hopkinton. So anyway, the event was disrupted by a motorcyclist going around the common repeatedly. And the first time it happened, I didn't think anything of it. Just somebody was out for a ride, but it just kept going on, and it was very loud and very disruptive. And it was upsetting to the people there. But the police came promptly. They de-escalated the situation quickly. And everyone felt safe, I think, after that. And I really appreciate that the next day the gentleman did apologize and he issued a nice long apology. And I think that's a good outcome. You know, Hopkinton Charter clearly states that we welcome all races, ethnicities, religions, abilities, gender identifications, and sexual orientations. And I don't think that's how it felt at first on Saturday. And as a town, we need to recognize it and that we can do better going forward. Thanks.
Thanks. Is that it? Is that all we got? Thank you. So moving on. COVID-19 update. Sean McAuliffe, Public Health Director, will provide a 5-minute town response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you for having me. As a quick update, we've had 136 total cases in the town. We have 1 active case at the moment, 122 recovered, 13 have passed away. Most recently, Robert McNaughty, who is well known in the town, he passed on August 5th. His passing was reported to us last week, and would like to issue, condolences to his family because, as I've read more about him, he was quite a character and quite a bright light in town. We have 1 active case at the moment. They are quarantined, but otherwise not cooperating with us. So we're addressing the situation with the state. But that said, they are compliant with their quarantine. So we're just trying to figure out our options for trace back, given the situation. Our current focus right now is twofold. It's assisting the schools with their reentry, and it's supporting local businesses and departments with the ever-changing COVID-19 regulations. We were informed just today that there are a new set of DESI guidelines coming out. They're going to be posted tomorrow at some point. It isn't clear if the changes are related to a recently revamped CDC guidance for school reentry, but as soon as we have them, we'll be sitting down with the school administration, the other stakeholders to figure out how those changes impact their reopening. This morning we met with Parks and Rec, some stakeholders involved in fall and winter athletic programming. We've been meeting with the senior center to expand the offerings that they have both in and outside of the building. And we've been working actually throughout this week with new business owners who are looking to open up shop in Hopkinton. And we're doing everything we can to help expedite their opening and the introduction of new businesses to the town. We have, I mean, and that's it in a nutshell. We made some recent decisions in town that impact, the basketball courts, et cetera. We're working with all of the stakeholders involved. And we're trying to figure out how to, I guess, reach some mutually agreed upon solutions. But that said, the teachers union, the teachers themselves, and a series of other resident groups were submitting complaints. So we took action that we felt was warranted. And as I said, we're working to figure out some solutions. And the only other thing that I'd like to add is the only thing that this drought is, the only positive thing about this drought is that our mosquito populations in town continue to drop. The only population right now that is of any concern in town is this Aedes vexin. It's the common mosquito. It kind of looks like a tiger on the back. That population carries or has the potential to carry West Nile virus. So we've been working with the Central Mass Mosquito Control Project to address those breeding grounds. And I'd just like to remind any resident that if they want mosquito service, that they can call the Central Mass Mosquito Control Project and have free treatment of their yard. And as I said, I'm working closely with the project to continue to mitigate risk in the town. Any other questions?
No questions here, Sean. You guys, as we say each week, thank you very much. You and Casey do a great job. You should be very proud of the work that you do. We, as select board members and a town, appreciate everything that you do. So thank you.
Yeah, and so we're pushing to get a zero positivity rate in town. So as long as everybody is on board with us, I think it's a reachable goal. So thank you for your support.
Mr. McCall, through the chair, one quick question for you.
Yeah.
The one case that we have now, is that from community spread or is that from just traveling?
From work.
From work. Okay.
Yeah, but it's one of the things that we try to do is during doing our due diligence, if there's a chance that work exposure should be further illuminated and that we communicate with other local boards of health to discuss other potential cases or contacts. We like to provide that. Our goal is to be as thorough as possible. And if you're not, openly cooperating with the department, it makes it next to impossible. So,
yeah,
I think this is the only case that it is the only instance so far where we've just had a failure to cooperate. So as I said, we're working with the DPH to figure out what our options are.
Well, thank you. I know you've been doing an incredible job, and while we'd all like to see cooperation from everyone, I think you're doing the best you can, and I think you've done an incredible job. So thank you.
1 out of over 1,000 cases that or just groups that we've worked with. I'll take that as a win.
Sure, absolutely.
And then I will also add that this is the first day where I've been working and I haven't been working with the chief in the fire department. So I miss you, Chief. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Everyone else good on the board? Mary Jo?
No, I just wanted to make the comment. I did go down to Keefe Tech and get tested, and I was really surprised at how good it was. It took, a while, but I had the results late that night or early the next morning. It wasn't a long turnaround at all. And thank goodness it's negative, but it was a good thing to do. And I encourage any citizen who wants a test to go and do it.
I had them late that night. You had them in the morning.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Good. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks again, Sean.
Welcome. Have a good night.
You too. So the next agenda item is retired and new firefighters. Fire Chief Steve Slamman will introduce 4 new firefighters, and the board will recognize 2 recent retirees from the department. Chief, would you like to introduce the new firefighters, please?
Sure. Thank you, sir. Just a quick question. Would you like me to run through all 4 or pause on each one for comment?
How would you like to do it?
That's a good question. That's why I asked. I guess I'll run through it.
So then why don't you do them one at a time?
Perfect. Thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce the 4 candidates. The first 3, all 4 are out of the SAFER grant. The first 3 just graduated from the Fire Academy. And then the 4th one is about to go at the end of the month. This has been about 11 months into the journey now from entering into this agreement for the grant, and just gives you an idea. But during this time, they gave us some wonderful relief to the response to COVID, and they did a lot of great work, and they're top-notch candidates. So I'm very proud to introduce them to you. Candidate number 1 is Rebecca Lapierre. I don't know if we're able to bring them on the screen at all, but I'll just kind of keep going and you can figure that part out. She graduated from Blackstone Millville Regional High School. She attended Rhode Island College, receiving a bachelor's degree in management in 2006. She attended the Navy basic training in 2009. She's a certified paramedic from Safety Program Consultants in 2014. She has shipboard firefighting training from 2017 and tactical combat casualty training from 2017. She has served with the Navy for 10 years with 2 deployments under her belt. She's worked as a paramedic for Milford Hospital since April of 2016, dispatched for the Milford Police Department since 2008, and worked a couple of years for Fallon Ambulance. Well, I don't see it on her resume. I'm going to assume that she's a fitness trainer, because in her background and the workouts we've been doing here, she's been killing me. So anyways, I see her on the screen, and that's Rebecca Lapierre.
Chief, not to be disrespectful, but that's not really setting the bar that high.
Oh boy.
As far as the fitness training goes.
Yes. So
Rebecca.
Jump in here, or would you like me to keep going, sir?
Why don't we have Rebecca jump in? Rebecca, welcome to Hopkinton.
Thank you, sir. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Like Chief said, I joined the Navy and I did some shipboard firefighting, and that's where I found out that I had an interest in the fire department. And I was already a dispatcher, so I already had that connection to that side of how the fire department works, communications and stuff. I also worked in the hospital, so I got to see the outcome of how medicals happen. So now being in Hopkinton, I get to roll it all together in one big package.
That's awesome. Board members, do you have anything for Rebecca? Mr. Nasrullah.
Rebecca, I just want to say great work. Seems like once again, Chief Slamman has just found the perfect candidate. And, welcome to Hopkinton. I'm excited to have you on board.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Herr.
Welcome, Rebecca. These are interesting times we live in, not only in Hopkinton, but in the United States and around the globe. I don't know if you're on earlier for some of the dialogue we've been having so far this evening. All that is not Hopkinton. Hopkinton's a great community to live in and work in, and I'm excited you're here. So please don't let, if you saw any of that, let any of that concern you. We got a great town here, and you're going to do a great job, and we really appreciate you being on the team. And I'll just leave that comment out to all of the candidates about sort of the process so far tonight. But I think we got a great organization. I know we have a great organization in the fire department, and we're glad to have you join. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Lafreniere.
Well, having had a son in the Navy, all I want to say is welcome aboard.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Ms. Ritterbush.
Yeah, I just basically want to say welcome like everyone else. We're glad to have you aboard. And our town is growing, and so we need some more people in the fire department. And Chief Slaman does a great job. He comes to all our growth study committee meetings. Very diligent.
Yep, so I've been a selectman for almost 5 years, and I believe he's missed maybe 1 or 2 selectman meetings. So Mr. Slaman certainly is dedicated to our town. And I say that with a big smile on my face. Mr. Herr probably understands why. What I don't know whether now's the right time to mention it or at the end or what, but we kind of glossed over that grant. So these 4 firefighters that we have that are coming on now full time are basically not on our dime. They're paid for by a grant for, I think, 3 or 4 years or something like that. So it's just such an awesome, I mean, yeah, we'll assume them in a few years, but we get a few years out of this for free. And I just think it's absolutely awesome. So kudos to anybody who was involved in getting that grant written. That's really it. I mean, Rebecca, to you again, I will say welcome to Hopkinton, and I hope you enjoy your 32 years here.
Thank you, sir. Excited to get back to work after the academy.
All right, thank you. Chief.
Yes, sir. And just a point of clarification, unfortunately, nothing's free in the world. So there's about $500,000 worth of value in the grant. It covers basically 70% of the first 2 years and 30 or 35% of the third year. Point of clarification, but it is a great opportunity to make this move.
Awesome. Sorry. Thank you for the clarification.
So candidate number 2 is Allison Rothenberg. See if I see her. Hopefully she gets in. Allison is a graduate from Framingham High. She attended State College in Keene for a year in 2014, and then she went and took an EMT program at Quinsigamon in 2017 and got into the medical field, where she worked with community EMS for a year. And then she decided she wanted to go further for paramedics. So she went back to school at Texas A&M Engineering, which has an extension paramedic program, and obtained her paramedic certificate. And we basically snagged her as a greenhorn right out of school. So the neat thing about that is in that program, she was able to experience some of the community paramedicine, which they have a lot down in Texas, and it's a program we're studying up here. We're hoping to support our community and the Board of Health a lot in that same fashion. And she had a lot of positive comments in her interview that way, which just fit in nicely with our community and the community's support. So I think that's it for my comments on Allison.
Excellent. So Josh, do we have Allison livened up here?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Hey, Allison, welcome to Hopkinton.
Thank you. I'm happy
So
to.
as we just asked our previous candidate, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I got my basic in Massachusetts. I worked for about a year when I decided to go to paramedic school. I thought it would be a really good opportunity to move elsewhere in the country just to see what another state has to offer. So I moved to Texas, and I went to the TEACS program, which they host their paramedic school on their fire school campus, and that allowed me to see the fire side of the paramedicine. And every day I got to watch what they do, and it intrigued me. During paramedic school, Texas does a lot of community paramedicine, and I got to see the effect that it has on those lower income areas in this world, and just the access it gives people who don't necessarily have the access to the medical field. Like it did wonders for those people. So I really look forward to hopefully that coming here and being able to use that. And now I'm here in Hopkinton and really enjoying the experience, just getting out of fire school and being able to put all that together. I'm really looking forward to it. Today's actually my first shift back, so it's been a good day.
Awesome. Congratulations. That academy is not an easy one. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Board members, Mr. Nasrullah.
Again, it sounds as though you've made your way around the country and came back to our glorious town. I welcome you back, and it sounds as though you're extremely well qualified with the paramedicine. And I hope I don't need you, but I feel comfortable knowing you're there.
Awesome. Mr. Herr.
Yep.
Mr. Herr.
Muted.
All right, Ms. Lafreniere.
No.
Mr.
Well, I
Lafreniere.
just want to say welcome to Hopkinton. I decided to settle here, bring up my kids some 40-something years ago, and I love it. It's just the best community that you could have to bring up a family and children and to work and to belong to. And welcome.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Ritterbusch.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Ms. Lafreniere said. We're welcome. We're happy to have you, and yeah, congratulations on coming to Hopkinton. It's a great place.
Mr. Herr, are you unmuted?
I believe I'm unmuted, Mr. Chair. I was saying I wanted to help Allison with her boss a little bit, Chief Slammin. He was talking about she being a greenhorn. Now, if he knows anything about Texas football, the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs would take great offense to that. And she went to Texas A&M, which is an Aggie, which is a whole different animal, or concept. I think the chief should be careful what he calls his recruits as he talks about Texas and football and recruiting new candidates coming to town. I'm having some fun here, Chief, but I am a college football fan, so I just want to throw that out there. Allison, I think you're going to do a great job here in Hopkinton. We're lucky to have you. You got a lot of really good experience and some great education behind you. And I'll take care of the chief and his college football knowledge. Let me know if you need help with that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I will echo all the good points that everybody said. So welcome to Hopkinton. I also settled into Hopkinton a few years ago. And I love it here too. And I'm still learning the lay of the land, but welcome to Hopkinton. And we wish you, again, 32 years, because that's, I believe, when you max out your pension. So 32 years of continued success and professional growth. So thank you very much.
I look forward to it.
Chief.
Yes. Okay. Candidate number 3 is Kyle Stark, excuse me. Kyle graduated from Penn Forest High School in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He attended the New England Tractor Trailer School and received his Class A CDL license in 2014. He took the National EMS Institute EMT program out of Worcester in 2017. He received his paramedic certificate from Pro EMS in 2019. He's worked at Catalvo since 2018, and he's also worked at Boylston Fire since 2017. As a new paramedic, Kyle hit the ground running in Hopkinton. He received outstanding reviews from his peers heading into the academy. And sure enough, as he came out of the academy, he received the coveted award called the Richard N. Banks Award, which is for the outstanding student of the class number 283. So special congratulations to Kyle. That is an amazing accomplishment, and we've had a couple in the last few years. I just wanted to also note that out of the three candidates, the other two chased Kyle the entire way, and they were very close runner-ups to receiving that award. I'm not allowed to share their grades, but I could see them in the background, and I just want you to know how well all three candidates did at the academy. It was amazing, and it just shows their teamwork, and that's what I hope for when they go to the academy, that they experience that. That's my report on Kyle.
Excellent. Mr. Stark, Kyle Stark, front and center.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Good.
Kyle, how are you?
Good. How are yourself?
I am good. Welcome to Hopkinton.
Thank you, sir.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yep. So I was born in Worcester, raised in Shrewsbury my whole life. Did a little alternative high school. I did like an online hybrid program. Did Shrewsbury for a couple of years. It just wasn't working out for me the way I wanted it to. So I did something else. After that, went and got my commercial driver's license. Drove for a few years. I love driving still, and I still do it on the side every now and then. But being a firefighter is something I've always wanted to do. I have pictures of me at the Shrewsbury Fire Station as a 2-year-old, all dressed up. So it's really where my heart has been. So I started off getting my EMT, working out at Cataldo, and then decided I wanted to go to paramedic school, which is something that I really love to do, being a paramedic. And now with the graduation from the academy, being in Hopkinton has been a great experience so far. Everybody that I've met in the community has been amazing, and I'm looking forward to the rest of my career there.
Excellent. Thank you, Kyle. Mr. Nasrullah.
Well, Mr. Stark, I can't help but call you Iron Man.
I get that a lot, sir.
Well, I look forward to seeing Iron Man driving around the the fire trucks and coming to people's safety. So it sounds like you've worked hard. You put a lot of work into this. You took an alternative route and you succeeded, which I think is just one of my favorite success stories, especially winning, achieving the the honor that you had achieved. I think it's fantastic. Welcome to Hopkinton. I'm glad to have you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Herr.
I think it's great that we're recruiting and hiring folks that follow their own path to get to where they want to be. I think society is changing. The whole college thing, high school thing, it's all kind of evolving right before our eyes, here in the last 6 months, certainly. And to achieve this level of success and join a great organization like the fire department in the town of Hopkinton, following the path that some would consider unconventional, I think it's great. I think that's where our world is going. So it's good to have people on board now that have experienced that and can share that experience with others. And I think we'll be a stronger community as a result. So welcome, and thanks for joining our team.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Lafreniere.
This is a little bit thrilling for me because you sound like you're going to be a firefighter who's going to love his occupation. And I come from a firefighting family, and I had one uncle that's been on the payroll since he was 8 years old in one fire department. And my grandmother said she used to have to stand on the doorway when the fire whistle went off because he would try to get out at any age, and he would go between her legs if he had to get to any fire. And he was in the fire department until he passed away, until he finally retired and passed away. So loved every single day, I think, and every single minute of it. And you sound like you're going to be the same kind of firefighter.
Absolutely.
So, aboard.
Thank you.
Ms. Ritterbusch.
Oh, I just want to say welcome to Kyle, and I've really enjoyed hearing about his background and how he ended up here in Hopkinton, and I hope he'll be here for a good long time, and enjoyed working here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Kyle, I had the distinction of having a conversation with you in the past. I ran into you at the fire station with Scotty, Lieutenant Jurassic, and we had about an hour and a half conversation, which is stuff that I tend to do on a 5-minute trip. So you could see in our conversation the passion that you had, already the pride that you had for working for Hopkinton, and it's clearly one of Chief's strong points are plucking out the really good people. I certainly enjoyed our conversation. I can see that you're in it for the long haul, and we are very much excited to have you in Hopkinton, and welcome aboard. And again, good luck in your next 32 years.
Thank you, sir.
And you are dismissed. Chief Slammin.
Thanks, Kyle. And not to be outdone here, but our fourth candidate is Shane Cook. I'm hoping Shane is here. Shane is a graduate of Hudson High School. She got her undergraduate at Becker College and Worcester State University in biology and received a bachelor's degree in 2012. Her paramedic certificate program was out of Quinsigamond in 2019. She's worked for MedStar and Vital for 4 years, and she had quite a bit of 911 EMS experience. She's did work for Berlin Fire doing EMS and did quite a bit of fire training with them. just kind of an interesting note, and I kind of remember with my old age that her in her interview she mentioned that she taught piano lessons in the background, and I just found that she had tremendous depth and character working with people, and she just stood out in her interview. So I just wanted to share that with you. She is going to be attending the Fire Academy at the end of the month. So welcome, Shane.
Excellent. How you doing, Shane?
Good. Can you guys hear me?
We sure
Yes.
can. Tell us a little bit about you.
So following Chief's introduction, I originally went to school to become a vet, and second year in, I poked a little kitten and realized that was not for me. So I went to the human route and decided to help humans instead of animals. So I've been an EMT for probably 5 to 6 years. I work for a private company. I did a lot of 911 work in the town of Fitchburg, which is very different from Hopkinton. Did some per diem stuff and on call with Berlin Fire, and realized that I like the fire side as well. So I decided to apply to Hopkinton. I remember growing up that going to the Hopkinton State Park was one of my favorite pastime memories. So I've been here since March. I do leave in a week and a half for the academy, and I cannot wait to come back 2 months later after training and hit the ground running and do firefighter activities as well as the medic stuff.
Good. Thank you very much. Mr. Nasrullah.
Ms. Cook, it sounds like, we have another great hire. I think Berlin's loss is our gain, and excited to have you on board. Best of luck at the Fire Academy. I know you're going to do fantastic, and I think I'm really looking forward to having you on board. So welcome to Hopkinton.
Miss Love, I'm sorry, Mr. Herr.
Where is the Fire Academy?
Stowe.
So?
Stowe, Massachusetts, Route 62.
Yeah.
That's a correct.
So this is great to see 4 good candidates come on like this, and for you to join us now as the 4th. This force is just going to be so much stronger. I think it's a great testament to the chief and all his hard work to recruit the best and the brightest, and for you folks and yourself to go through this process and land with us here in Hopkinton really is a testament to your hard work, and the community values its public safety people very much, and I think you'll see that once you get rolling here full time, and we're glad to have you and wish you the best. Thanks for joining.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Herr. Ms. Lafreniere.
Oh, welcome to Hopkinton. Did I hear the fire chief say that you went to Becker?
I did. I went for 2 years, and I was a part of their pre-vet program.
Well, I think you have a Becker graduate across the street in the police department, Megan Durad. So maybe you ought to say hi to each other. And I really hope you're going to love Hopkinton. We all do. And we think it's just the best community going. And I think, and the fire academy you're going to like. I've been out there myself, so I think you're going to do just fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lafreniere. Ms. Ritterbush.
I just wanted to say welcome and good luck on the academy coming up. It's good to hear that you're good with people, because I think in any career that's a really important skill to have, to get along with everyone, and especially you'll be working with the public a lot. And anyway, so we hope you'll be here a long time.
Thank you, Shane. I don't know if you've been through an academy before, but I know that it's all myth. The drill instructors do appreciate when you talk back to them. They love to be questioned, and they like reasoning. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And I wish you great luck in the academy. It's going to be a tough 12 or so weeks, I believe, or 10 weeks. But the end result is that you'll be able to work in probably the best community out there for 32 years. So thank you and welcome aboard. And best wishes at the academy.
Thank you.
Chief Slamman.
Yes, sir.
Did for the newbies. Let's start with some old ones.
Okay, well, just to finish up on the newbie, sir, just I want to thank you all for the support. Getting this grant was really tremendous, and it made such a difference in our COVID response, which we didn't even know then. I just can't even express how much of a difference these four made. So thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
And for the two retirees, you have Boo Clark and Norm Seymour in front of you, and I was told you were doing the introduction.
Yes, let me pull up the introduction. So I think that that the introductions that were written to us were very purpose written to allow me to not go freestyle, especially with Boo. So tonight the board will recognize two recent retirees. Robert Boo Clark retired after just 40 years of service. He joined the town as a seasonal worker for the DPW in 1979. In 1980, he became a call firefighter. In 2000, he became a full-time firefighter EMT and retired at the end of 2019. He served on the technical rescue team and volunteered for community programs offered by the department. Norm Seymour joined the town full-time firefighter in 2001, retired in 2020. He served as a hazardous materials technician, has a dedicated service to the State Hazardous Materials Response Team and the Massachusetts Firefighter Academy with a special background running the Fire Academy Gas School Program. Note, Mr. Seymour will not be present, and I just forwarded the link to Mr. Clark. I see that he's on there. I see he's muted. I will not tell him how to unmute his computer, but he's going to need to unmute his computer because you are front and center, Boo. Oh, you got to get rid of your shutdown video. So open your video, open your mic. There's your mic.
There's your mic.
Video's right next to it. Can you hear us, Boo? Boo, can you hear us? So if I see he's not muted and I see his video's on, let me see if I can find him on our computer here. Falcione, Boo Clark. Well, we're not seeing him there. So, so I guess until we can have Boo maybe jump onto a different machine. Boo, you can, on that link that I sent you on your phone, you can click on that on your phone. And if you have a camera on your phone, that should bring up a mic and a video. So while you're waiting to figure that out, board members, would you mind if I took the lead on this one about Mr. Clark?
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I knew Boo. Chief Slamman said that he joined the fire department in 1980. I believe I met Boo about 8 to 9 years prior to that. We have been, I would say I guess we could best classify our relationship over the years as sandbox friends. For the last 20 years, we've really liked each other. For the 20 years prior to that, we did not. But we really did like each other the whole time. We just like to get under each other's skin. Boo comes from a family of Clarks in town where his dad was a long time firefighter. His brother Ken, who's the oldest of the brothers, they lived. And Ken was the chief, the prior fire chief, and he's got a brother Fran who is almost coming up to 50 years of service after my last conversation with him, which is absolutely incredible. So to say that firefighting is in the Clark blood is a gross understatement. Notwithstanding back in the heyday when it was a different town, the call department was about, I'd say 70% Clark, Hayward, Fecto, maybe 20% Terry, Tedstone, and 3% Lukey, and maybe a little bit of outside of the blood gene pool, outside of the gene pool, and the McIntyres. Yes, we can't forget the McIntyres. Boo's done an awesome job. He's been in this department through thick and thin, and I consider Boo a very good friend. I worked with him in the fire department. I worked with him at McIntyre, and I've spent many a night sitting next to him on a stool at, let's say, the library, doing some reading. So, Boo, so this is one of the times where I'm very proud as a selectman to be able to sit here and talk about you, especially since you have no chance of rebutting me with no voice. But we think the world of you. Congratulations. I know you're retired. I know you'd rather not be retired, but we'll miss a lot of your good qualities on a day-to-day basis on the department. And thank you very much for 40 years of service to the town, whether it be DPW, highway, sewer, water, fire, everything. So I know you're not going anywhere, but congratulations and thanks again. Mr. Nasrullah.
Well, obviously I didn't know Boo as well as Mr. Tedstone, but Boo, congratulations on retiring. Thank you so much for your service. 40 years is an awful long time. It sounds as though you've run the whole gamut in working with us in the town. I am the proud recipient of your service. So thank you very, very much. And enjoy the next phase.
Thank you. Mr. Herr.
When we hire 4 new firefighters, all very talented and well educated, and will be really strong players in the department and on the team, it's because we have other folks that are retiring and moving on. And it's exciting to bring new folks on. It's kind of bittersweet when others do move on. But retirement is a time that is well deserved for many. And Boo, I don't recall exactly who was at my house when I had a pretty good fire 10 years ago or so over on Elizabeth Road. But when you or your colleagues showed up and immediately took control of the situation, my heart rate went from probably about 160 down to 80. And I'll never forget that night. And I'll never forget what happened when you guys rolled in the driveway and just said, "We got it. Get out of the way and put down that garden hose. You're going to get hurt." The Hopkinton Fire Department did a fantastic job then, and they've done a fantastic job on thousands of other incidents over the years. I'm sure you've seen more than your share. And, I want to thank you for your service. And if I see you out somewhere soon, I'd be happy to raise a glass and toast your service to the community and perhaps have a second one too. So enjoy your retirement. You've earned it. And look forward to seeing you around town. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lafreniere, I believe you are probably the second most qualified person to have a discussion on Boo.
I was going to say, hey, Boo, I can't believe it. I just can't believe we got here. I think I met Boo on the same stool at the library that Brendan did many years ago. And have known him ever since. I'm going to be sad not to see him at the fire station, but I hope I see you more around town and can say, hey, Boo, how you doing? And as usual. And I wish you all the best of luck in your retirement. I know I'm enjoying mine, and I'm sure you'll enjoy yours too. And thanks for all your work and dedication over all these years. I have muchly appreciated it. Thank you.
Excellent. And Ms. Ritterbusch.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for your service for this long period of time in town, and we really appreciate it. And I hope you're going to really enjoy your retirement, but unfortunately it's kind of you're going to be able to travel for a while. So hopefully you have some socially distanced hobbies that you've been looking forward to doing in the years to come. But enjoy it. You've deserved it.
Thanks. So, Boo, we can't see you, but if you can try to say something, your mic is on, so we should be able to hear you. Perfect. One of the very, very few times we can silence Boo. And I will tell you that a travel, Boo going on a trip would be all the way to Framingham. So he's not really restricted too much with this COVID, but he will thoroughly enjoy his retirement. I will see to it. Great guy, comes from a great family, and spent a lot of time on a great department. So, Boo, from the bottom of our hearts, collectively as a group, as a board, thank you very much, and we wish you a long and very fun retirement. So Mr. Seymour, Norm Seymour is not here. I don't know Norm quite like I knew Boo. Norm was just new on the department, probably for a few years, when I started to kind of wean my way off. So, but anytime I had any dealings with Norm, he was very professional, very knowledgeable. And like Mr. Hurst said, anytime you lose someone, it's great to see the new firefighters, but you're losing 19 years of or 20 years of experience with Norm, and that's hard to replace. Also to Norm, I will say I wish you a long and enjoyable and happy retirement. So thank you for all your service here, Norm. If any of the board members want to say anything. Okay, excellent. So thank you guys very much. Boo, Norm, congratulations. Best wishes to you both. Moving forward, we will do the planning board appointment. Select board and the remaining members of the planning board will consider filling a vacancy on the planning board with the term expiring at the 2021 annual town meeting. First, let me confirm that the members of the planning board are present and can hear me. I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Trendell.
Gary Trendell, yes.
Mr. Benson. Is probably on mute. Ms. Kramer.
Carol Kramer, yes.
Ms. Feinbrugg. Not present. Ms. Larson Marlowe.
Mary Larson Marlowe, present.
Okay. Ms. Moran. Not here. Mr. Paul.
On mute.
Okay, we'll get back to him. Miss Sundar, I'm sorry, Sundar Savaraman.
Sundar Savaraman, present. You did
Sorry
a good
about
job.
that.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Dave Paul, present.
I'm reading up. Thanks, Dave. I'm reading off my phone, so if you see me going like this, I'm like Mr. Magoo here. So
And Jane is on too.
I'm sorry?
Moran present. Jane Moran?
Jane Moran is here. So is there anybody not here? So your planning board is all here. Great.
It looks like Deb is missing, but I
Yeah.
know she was on earlier.
Okay. So if the planning board is agreeable, I will chair the joint meeting.
Yes, we are.
Okay. We have received 4 applicants. Mr. Trendell, is your board in session?
We are not, but I will call to order the planning board at 7:09 p.m. on August 18th, 2020.
Okay. So we have received 4 applications for the one position. The candidates are Fran DeYoung, Kelly Karp, Jared Prey, and Curtis Smithson. Are all the candidates present? Mr. DeYoung.
Present.
Kelly Karp.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Jared Prey.
Yes, Jared Pray here.
Okay. Curtis Smithson.
I'm here.
Okay. I will give each candidate up to 3 minutes to describe their interest in serving on the planning board, going in alphabetical order. First will be Fran DeYoung. Mr. DeYoung, you have the floor in just 1 second when I set my timer. I am a stickler when it comes to this stuff. So you are on the clock now.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, fellow board members. I am interested in the open role for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I want to be able to contribute back to the planning board and the town in a meaningful way. And I think my past experience on the planning board, as I finished up my 5-year term last year, as well as the previous experience on the ZAC and my current experience on the Growth Study Committee, really give me a unique perspective to be able to contribute back and really kind of look at things from a meaningful and thoughtful approach, balanced and prepared. And I think those are some of the facts that are and really kind of the considerations that I brought to the planning board when I was on there previously. I love living here. I love contributing and participating. I think that's been somewhat evident in the past. And I'm willing and I understand, I think to the certain degree, of some of the challenges that the board is currently looking at and facing. But also, I think I can bring a perspective to help guide the vision and help with some of the outstanding issues and decisions that the planning board will undertake over the next year or two. So I think really in conclusion, I appreciate your consideration for my application. And I think some of that experience will really help the planning board in working in conjunction with the other planning board members to complete the outstanding term that's currently vacant. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. DeYoung. Board members, do you have anything for Mr. DeYoung?
Well, I don't have any questions, but I do want to say that I had the pleasure of working with Mr. DeYoung on the planning board. And I think he was always well-reasoned, respectful, well thought out positions, and I think he's an excellent candidate.
I was going to suggest through the chair, if we have questions for the candidates, could we ask them of all four after they've all introduced themselves, maybe?
It's fine with me. Board, how do you feel about that? You good with that?
Fine.
Yep.
Fine with that.
Okay. All right, that's great. So the next applicant will be Kelly Carp.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to apply for the position. As you know, I was on the board in May of 2017. I was elected to a 3-year position, and I had an unfortunate family medical emergency that required me to leave the term before it was over. I left about a little less than a year into the term. It was the right decision at the time for my family, but I always regretted not finishing out my term. I was very disappointed to not be able to continue to serve the town. I ran because I believe very strongly in volunteerism. I had a very large interest in the growth and the development of the town, and I really wanted to offer my voice and my perspective in guiding that. And I wasn't able to finish that out. So I kind of set a goal for myself that when the time was right for me, I wanted to step back into a role where I could serve the community again. And this happened to open up, and like I said, I have a passion for the growth and development of the community. I've lived in Hopkinton for 15 years with my family. This is the only town my kids know. I feel very strongly that we're going through a lot of growth and a lot of change, and with that comes a lot of challenges and opportunities. And I just really want to be able to provide a voice in guiding that growth and development in the town. I have a lot of management experience. I work with diverse cross-functional groups, problem solve, deliver common objectives. I consider myself to be very deliberate in decision-making, thoughtful. I like to hear all sides before, making a decision, and really understand that the position on the planning board is doing what's right for the town ultimately. And I feel that I could bring a lot of experience to the board in regards to my management experience. I've continued to stay fairly current with the planning board. I can't say that I'm 100% current, but I've stayed fairly current. I feel that I would be able to get up to speed with the current agenda. And I do feel like that I would be able to bring the results that the town's looking for if I were to serve on the board. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to to speak to you tonight, to come before you and have the opportunity to be considered for the position.
Brendan, you're muted.
Sorry, I guess that's why Kelly ignored me when I said 15 seconds. So the next one is Jared Prey. Jared.
Excellent, thank you. So my name is Jared Prey. I have lived in Hopkinton for a bit over 15 years. Had a couple different houses here. We've moved once in town. And I have 3 daughters, 2 of which are currently in school, the third of which is 6 months old. So, with that in mind, I'm most likely going to be here for another 20 years or so. So, when I think of the town, it's, for me, it's been here a while, but it's also a long-term commitment as well. I think over the 15 years, obviously, we've seen quite a bit of growth and the town evolve in that time. I think most changes have been, undeniably positive, but I think it's important that we continue to look forward as to how we want the town to evolve and how we want the town to look ultimately, as we start looking that far in the future. It's a great time to think about that future growth. We're kicking off the downtown project, obviously. It's kicked off, and Legacy is likely in its last phase. So I think it's important that we start thinking about what's beyond those two, very important and certainly impactful projects. Unlike some others, I do not have experience on the planning board. I'd position that certainly as a positive, as a different perspective, as a fresh perspective, bringing to the table. Professionally, my background's actually in engineering, project management. Spent about 10 years or so doing that, primarily with pharmaceutical companies. For the last 10 years or so, I've worked on the commercial marketing side, pharmaceutical companies, really commercializing, bringing different drugs to the market. Excited about the opportunity and would love to be considered for this open position. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me hit cancel on that. And let's see. So the next one is Curtis Smithson. Curtis, welcome.
Thanks a lot. Probably the first thing everybody's going to notice is that I don't sound like I'm from here. Grew up in the South, have wandered all over the country following my wife around. She's worked in a specialized position, and I'm a civil engineer, so we're kind of a jack of all trades and can pretty much go anywhere. We moved here, I guess, a little over 3 years ago. I've been in registered engineer for somewhere around 30 years. Most of my experience is in land development. I don't have experience on any of the boards or commissions, but I've been on the other side of the table for, like I say, 32 years now, I believe. Should bring a lot of diverse experience with different areas and different approaches to development in a community. I'm wanting to get a little bit more involved in the community. Both my boys are college age and graduated. Got a little bit more time than I used to have. So wanted to see what I could do to help out my new community, which I'm going to have to say at this point is probably one of the favorite places that I've lived and wandering around the country. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any members of the select board have any questions for the candidates? Mr. Nasrullah.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say that it's fabulous to see that we have 4 very qualified, dedicated people applying and wanting to serve the town. I think this is a tragedy of riches that we have so many good candidates here.
Yep.
Just the commentary.
Agreed. Mr. Herr.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lafreniere.
Well, I have a question for Elaine. This is a 5-year term?
No, this is the term that ends the
3 years.
town meeting.
Amy's. Okay. How long is it for, Amy?
Well, for now, it's just 1 year till the next election, and
1
then
year.
they'd have to run again.
Right. Ms. Ritterbusch.
I just wanted to say, I think we have 4 very qualified candidates here and only 1 spot, which is always a regrettable situation. But so whoever does not get this spot, I hope you'll consider applying for one of the other openings. We have zoning advisory committee opening, permanent building committee, and I think a couple others. So people who don't get the spot, please consider trying again, because we value having you as volunteers. And then I guess I wanted to ask, what do you do in the situation where somebody comes to the planning board with a plan that meets all the zoning guidelines, yet you have a huge group of residents who are opposed to the project when they come to the board? Can you describe how you'd handle that situation?
So why don't we'll go in order. Mr. DeYoung.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, got it.
There you go.
I think in a situation like that, you first have to look at the rules, and I think you kind of articulated the fact that if they do um, fall within all the approved guidelines and regulations, that you have to balance also the concerns of the abutters or the townspeople and understanding what are their concerns. And I think you have to kind of look at it from the approach of, are those concerns, are they grounded in a legal perspective, or is it something less so? And then I think you have to make a decision, based on the laws that are in front of you, but try to do it in a thoughtful, balanced way, taking into consideration the concerns and issues of those abutters or townspeople, and what their concerns are. Because I think the key thing is just being able to listen at the end of the day and know that those people feel that their voices are heard. And I've seen in the past, whether or not a decision goes in their way, they at least want their voice heard. I think that's absolutely critical. And then you can make the decision going forward from there.
Thank you, Fran. Kelly.
Yep. Hi. I agree with Mr. DeYoung. I think it's important that you listen to what your community is saying to you. But at the end of the day, the planning board, their responsibility is to make sure that if somebody comes before you and they meet all of the requirements and legally they fit the bill, so to speak. It's important that you're not making decisions based on personal opinions or thoughts or feelings that you may have about a certain project. I think it's important that you hear what people have to say. I think it's very important that that their voices are heard. But I think there has to be a balance, and it's part of the planning board's responsibility to explain back to the community, although they may have concerns as an abutter, although they may have worries about a plan or something going forward, that it's our job to explain to them why something may be approved that they don't necessarily agree with. I do think that you do take into account all of the everything that everybody has to say. You put it on record. But if the plan is legally fits all the requirements, it's going to vary situation to situation. But I think that you have to do what's right for that person with the plan.
Thanks, Kelly. Jared, Mr. Prey?
I think that Fran and Kelly touched on it, but as far as I see it, kind of step one is certainly to listen to both sides of that argument, and really to understand what the concerns are. And I think at the end of the day, we're kind of bound by the guidelines or the laws that are in place. But is there something we can do proactively before we get to that point? Can we anticipate? There's certainly some, there's some hot buttons in town that folks are pushing on right now, and is there something we can think about before we get to that point, and think possibly have a conversation about that ahead of time.
Excellent. That's great. Thanks, Jared. Curtis, Mr. Smithson.
I just pretty much would echo most of what's been said so far. I think it's important that the citizenry be heard and acknowledged. I've been on the wrong end of the argument many times with a development that nobody in town wanted. But I think in the end, if you can work with your developer in some cases to address some of the concerns of the citizens, that even though the project 100% meets requirements, sometimes a little give and take will keep all parties a little bit happier. So some negotiation, but I think it's basically important that everybody be heard. Value their opinions. You can't please everybody all the time, so there are going to be some disappointed parties, but I think that's basically it.
Okay. Mr. Trendell.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a quick comment and a question. I am also really excited that we have 4 solid applicants for this position, and just want to reinforce that we also have open positions for Zach in particular. So for anyone that doesn't move on to the planning board tonight, I think Zach is a really great place to be involved. And I know at least one of our applicants has been on Zach previously. Really quick question for me. I'm just curious for each of the applicants in the last, I got a loud dog here. How in the last 3 months or so, how many planning board meetings have you watched or attended via Zoom?
So for me, are you going to go in the same order, Mr. Chair, or do you want to?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Fran. Same order.
Sure. Probably about half dozen or so, Gary, give or take, either live or tape.
Okay. Kelly?
So I would say I've probably watched about the same, but I do read every article that's published about the planning board. I read all of the minutes, and I read everything that's published in the papers. I get a lot of my information from EHOP. Believe it or not, they provide a lot of direct links to planning board materials and videos, and I'm watching it and keeping abreast that way.
Nice job doing the suck up to EHOP. I like it.
That wasn't my plan.
Thank you, Mr. Prey.
Having PA, just minutes afterwards.
Okay. And Mr. Smithson?
Haven't seen anything live. Get most of my information from the publications, the EHOP, and what's the local paper, the Hopkinton Independent, or I've seen a handful of. I guess the solar farm's been the biggest item seems lately that's come through. So.
Yep. All right, Mr. Benson, Robert Benson.
So I have a few questions, but they all can be answered in yes, no.
That's awesome.
What we like.
So do you have 6 hours approximately every other week to dedicate to the planning boards? So that's question number 1. Would you run in May 2021? That's question 2. And do you find the need to repeat other people's opinions? So 3 questions, all can be answered with yes or no.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes, possibly yes. I don't want to say yes to number 2. And the third is no, I don't need to repeat somebody else's comment. Everybody can speak for themselves.
Mrs. Karp.
So yes, yes. So I would run again if I were on had the opportunity. And no, I don't feel it's. I have my own opinions. I don't need to repeat anybody else's opinions.
Excellent. Mr. Prey.
Yes, I'd say probably yes. And no, I have enough of my own opinions.
Okay. Mr. Smithson.
Say yes and yes. And if you ask anybody, I'm very opinionated and like to express my own views on things. So I'm not a follower.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Paul.
Yes.
I don't want you to answer those questions. I want to see if you have a question.
I do not have any questions, though, but I think they've asked some great questions. So thanks for asking.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Ms. Kramer.
Yeah, I just want to, I don't actually have any questions. Thank you all for your questions. I just wanted to reiterate how appreciative I am of everybody that has stepped up. And I'm going to do the thing that Rob Benson doesn't want us to do, and remind people or encourage you to look at other positions in town if you do not get this position this time.
Thank you. Ms. Larson Marlowe.
I think everything's been covered very well, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Feinbrugg.
Yeah, on the chance that I might repeat something and garnish some disapproval, I really think that sometimes repetition, I might, like cast a little bit of disagreement with some of the responses, that repetition sometimes and repetitiveness sometimes reaffirms and brings up more conversation about an issue. So I don't think it's always bad. But I really, again, and I'll reiterate, wonderful candidates. It's going to be a tough choice. And I do encourage you to continue running in the following year.
Thank you. Ms. Moran.
Okay, thank you. And I'm at the tail end of this, so I don't want to repeat myself, but I want to just say, reiterate that we have really qualified candidates here, and this is going to be a tough decision. But each of you, I think, most of you anyway, mentioned that growth was one of the number one reasons why you applied. And what I would like to ask you is, do you have specific areas of growth that are of a concern to you in the town of Hopkinton at this time?
Mr. DeYoung.
Yeah, so Jane, to address your question, I think growth can be looked at from a couple different ways, right? There's residential growth, there's growth in the schools, there's also potential growth opportunities from a commercial perspective. And I think that's always the balance, and it's been the balance since I lived here, is how do we kind of try to get a little bit more equitable. So I think as I look over the next 10 years, the role that the planning board can play to kind of help with in conjunction with information from Zach, even from the growth study committee, to look at ways to kind of better manage the growth, the residential growth, but at the same time, look at opportunities to improve the growth on the commercial sector to, again, create that bit of a balance.
Thank you. Ms. Karp.
So at the risk of repeating what Fran said, that's, to be frank with you, that's really where I'm coming from when I use the word growth. It really has to do with business and perspective and how we can continue to grow the town. From a business perspective, looking at all of our opportunities, how can we get more businesses into town? How can we, grow our town? Our town is growing from a residential standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. We need to consistently look at how we can get more business into town, and I think that would be something that I would be very interested in being a part of.
Thank you. Mr. Prey.
Certainly over the last, the 15 years I've been here, we've heard a lot about the importance of bringing additional commercial tax base into the town. Certainly agree with it and how important it is. As we've discovered, it's also quite difficult. And I think the one thing we don't want to lose focus on, we think of different types of housing, whether we talk about high density housing or low density housing. Is there something that concerns me? No. I think the importance is the balance. And as we think of different types of housing, that we don't push in any one direction or another, and we consider that balance and ultimately consider kind of what fits in this town, kind of where it fits, and make sure that we think about, don't forget about the housing question and high density versus low density at the expense of focusing so much on commercial, understanding how difficult it is to truly influence the growth of the commercial base.
Thank you. Mr. Smithson.
Having only been here a couple of years, I can't say I've had my ear to the ground on what's been going on recently. No, I've heard talk that legacy farms was a big issue at one point.
A little bit.
Whether or not that fit into Hopkinton, that's something you don't really want to bring up with a lot of people. It sounds like. I think controlled growth, sensible growth, a logical progression of developments is always something that you want to see over, just bulldozing everything and having a bunch of houses go up. Being on the developer side of things for many years, I've always tried to rein them in just a little bit to, take a few steps to make things a little bit more palatable to the community and the commissions that we're presenting to. So, growth is going to happen. If you can keep some checks on it, I think that's a good thing.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Severaman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. first of all, I'd like to admire everyone. This is amazing that all four of you have come in here offering your services to the town. So kudos to you on that. Quick question, yes or no is good enough. This is the great outdoors. Hopkinton is known to be the great outdoors. People love it. So sometimes growth can mean, not a really positive thing here. How much do you support the growth initiative versus, protecting the great outdoors? So for me, affordable housing is a huge thing. So is there a conflict in your mind between supporting affordable housing and sort of restricting growth in some fashion? So a short answer is good enough. I just want to get your viewpoint on that.
So is this a yes or no response?
Sure, why not?
So the question again was,
affordable housing versus preserving Hopkinton's character.
Yes.
Yes, in favor of one or the other?
Well, I think you can actually, there's a balance there. I think you can support affordable housing as well as maintain the character of the town. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yep, you're up, Kel.
Okay, thanks. Yes, I think you can have both. I think that, yeah, I would say yes. I think it's feasible to have both.
Excellent. Mr. Prey?
Again, not a yes or no response, I guess, but I think the importance, as I mentioned, was just the word balance. There's, in some ways, these are competing concepts, but I certainly not in all cases. I mean, we have the ability to balance those two needs, and obviously, I think we could argue that both are quite important, and it's just important that we think about that balance.
Excellent. And let's see, Mr. Smithson.
I would have to use the word balance also. If done properly, in the right spot, the right setting, I think you can try to maintain both.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that sums up the question and answer period. So we are ready for a vote. So the select board has a runoff voting procedure that we've used. Step one, before I entertain a motion, I would like to ask each of the board members to indicate which candidate they prefer for the position for the planning board member. And we will do that on a roll call basis. Mr. Nasrullah.
Right, so you want me to say my preference?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Mr. DeYoung. Mr. Herr.
Carp.
Carp? Mrs. Carp?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Lafreniere.
I think this is a very tough one because Mr. DeYoung has been on for 5 years and Kelly's been on and off, and I think both absolutely excellent candidates. But I guess I would have to say Mr. DeYoung, seeing as how he's just getting off a term.
Okay. Ms. Ritterbusch.
Mr. DeYoung.
Okay. Mr. Trendell.
Mr. DeYoung.
Okay. Mr. Benson.
Mr. DeYoung.
Mr. Paul.
So yes, I would just like to say that thank you for everybody running, and it's a difficult decision. I would love to get some new blood in, but I will go with Mr. DeYoung with his experience. And, that's my decision.
Okay. Ms. Kramer?
So it's a really hard call for me, to be honest with you. I am personal friends with at least two of the candidates and value their contributions really highly. And I always value the contributions or potential contributions of new people. And I really, really encourage you to stay involved. I am voting for Mr. DeYoung.
Thank you. Ms. Larson Marlowe? I'm sorry, Ms. Larson Marlowe?
That's all right, Brendan, thanks.
Sorry.
I'm going to buck the trend and vote for some less experience and more new ideas and thoughts, and go with Mr. Smithson.
Okay. Ms. Feinbrugh?
I'm finding the decision very tough, but I think in this time of lots of changes, and that I will go with someone who's had a lot of experience on the board, Mr. DeYoung.
Okay, Ms. Moran?
Hey, again, would like to echo everyone's opinion. It's a really tough call. I'd like to get some new blood in here, but I think at this point in time in our planning board, and we're in some really interesting times, I think that I would vote for Mr. DeYoung.
And Mr. Stavarman?
It's a tough call. I was new when I came into the board. I still am new. I would definitely like to promote someone who's new. Therefore, I'm voting for Mr. Prey.
Okay. And I am going to vote for Mrs. Karp. So the way I look at it, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 for Mr. DeYoung. Two
for Ms. Karp.
2 for Ms. Karp, and 1 for Mr. Prey. No, Smithson. Mr. Smithson, right?
And 1 for Mr. Prey.
And Mr. Prey. Okay. So it looks like, based on the majority, I will entertain a motion to appoint Fran DeYoung to the planning board to a term expiring at the 2021 annual town election.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion from the boards, plural?
I just wanted to make a comment through you, Mr. Chair.
Make it quick.
Yep, sure. Everyone who wasn't elected, please run for the open positions next time they're available. You'll probably be running against me, so good luck and love to see you out there.
Careful what you wish for, right, Mr. Paul?
Right.
That's right.
So yes, I would echo Mr. Paul's sentiments there. So it is, the motion has been made, it's been seconded. We will proceed to a roll call vote. So I will appoint Fran DeYoung to the planning board. That's been moved and seconded. So now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Nasrullah?
Yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Lafreniere, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
Mr. Trendle?
Trendle, yes.
Mr. Benson?
Benson, yes.
Mr. Paul?
Dave Paul, yes.
Ms. Kramer?
Carol Kramer, yes.
Ms. Larson Marlowe?
Larson Marlowe, yes.
Ms. Feinbrug?
Yes.
Ms. Moran?
Moran, yes.
Mr. Savaraman?
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Sivaraman, sorry, yes. And Ted Stone, yes. So I guess that motion has been made and carried, and congratulations to Mr. DeYoung and to Kelly and to Jared and to Curtis. Like many of my colleagues have said, there are always many things, many openings on many boards, and we love that we would love to have you on as many as you can possibly fit into your social schedule. So, and I really mean that. All 4 candidates were very, very well vetted here and very well qualified. So we were very lucky to have the situation that we're at. And I would implore you to continue your quest to become a volunteer in the town. So thank you guys, and congratulations to Mr. DeYoung.
Congratulations, friend.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so moving on to our, oh, actually, do you want to, Mr. Trendle, do you close your meeting?
That's a good question. I guess we should close our meeting. Do we need to vote on that?
Mr. Kamalu?
I'm mute.
Mr. Kamalu, I believe you're muted.
Yes, please.
Okay, so they need to.
So I will entertain a motion to close the planning board meeting on August 18th, 2020.
Rob Benson, so moved.
Mary Larson Marlowe, second.
Oh, for discussion, do we need the planning board to be here for the town meeting discussion or no?
Mr. Kamalu?
They're not required.
Okay.
I will, I'll stay on though.
Okay. Great. So,
All right, so no further discussion, move to roll call vote. Do I coordinate this vote? I guess I do.
yes.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with the joint meetings. So Gary Trendle, yes. Muriel,
Noah Kramer, yes.
Mary,
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob,
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane,
Jane Marine, yes.
Dave,
Hey, Paul, yes.
Sundar,
Sundar, yes.
and Deb.
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Excellent. Thank you guys and girls very much. We appreciate it. And we'll talk with you guys real soon.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Brendan. See ya.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Harry, do you want anybody to stay on with you?
Nope, I'm good.
Moving on to the annual appointments, the board will make appointments to the Personnel Committee. There are 2 vacancies for the committee and both expire on 6/30. I'm sorry, let me do this. Yeah, 6/30 of 23. Applicants are Gary Russell and Barbara Kessler. Mr. Kamalo, are there 2 available, 2 vacant? So there's 2 vacancies, 2 applicants. So I will request a motion to appoint Gary Russell and Barbara Kessler to the Personnel Committee for term expiring 6/30 of 23.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote? Mr. Nasrullah?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Lafreniere, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
And Mr. Tedstone, yes. Great, congratulations, thank you. FY21 budget updates, 2020 annual town meeting. Mr. Kamalu?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Over the weekend, I believe I emailed the board the revised budget worksheets, and the summary that I'm providing references those budget worksheets. While many communities pressed forward with a full budget for fiscal year 2021 in the spring, you will recall that Hopkinton, through the select board's decision, decided to operate for 3 months under temporary budgets, deferring action on a final budget until September because of uncertainty about how the COVID-19 situation would unfold. At that time, a working budget for FY 2021 was developed based on the following principles. Use conservative estimates for town revenues, sustain core town services at FY 2020 levels, provide funding for contractually obligated expenses, limit increases in services to direct classroom needs for our growing student population, suspend the town capital improvements program, defer all operating expenses that could be postponed, and tap into reserves from the general fund stabilization and school stabilization accounts to sustain operations during a period of expected revenue loss, reluctantly using one-time funding sources to pay recurring bills during COVID-19. 3 months later, we now have better financial information to support informed decision-making. The most impactful budget news arrived in late July when Governor Baker and the legislature announced updated estimates for local aid to communities, and thankfully, increasing Hopkinton's local aid by 5.4% rather than falling dramatically. The second piece of good news is available to us because of the delay in adopting a final budget. The COVID-19 crisis was expected to halt or slow construction and, as a result, diminish tax revenue available from new growth. In May, the town's forecast for new growth was adjusted downward from 2 million to 1.5 million. Now, with better information available, our principal assessor has raised that estimate to 1.9 million, reflecting the very strong growth that occurred before the pandemic arrived in March and a good continuation of construction during the pandemic. Together, these 2 pieces of good news support the following recommended adjustments to the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021. 1. Eliminate the planned use of $875,000 from the General Stabilization Fund and $900,000 from the School Stabilization Fund. 2. Lower the amount of certified free cash from prior years to be used in the operating budget from $2.5 million to $1.4 million. 3. Hold spending to the austerity levels agreed upon in May. Let me address the merits of this fiscally cautious approach. Prior to COVID-19, the Massachusetts Municipal Association's best practice recommendation for operating reserves was to hold about 5% of the amount of the operating budget for emergencies. COVID-19 has changed the idea of what an emergency can look like, and experts are now recommending much higher reserves. You will recall, this was noted by Standard & Poor's in the discussions supporting the town's recent bond issue. Because we remain uncertain about whether there will be repeated cycles of economic shutdown, because we remain uncertain about the actual shape and tempo of an economic recovery, and because we remain uncertain about the Commonwealth's ability to sustain local aid in fiscal year 2022 and beyond, preserving our stabilization funds can only help our situation if the recovery is slow and if other complications arise. As of June 30th, 2020, the town had the following stabilization balances. General Fund Operating Stabilization Fund, 3.8 million. General Fund Capital Stabilization Fund, 525,000. School Stabilization Fund, $2.1 million, with an additional $2 million receivable under a host community agreement by December 31st, 2021. The combined total is 8.1 million available now or within the next 16 months, equal to about 8.3% of the forecast fiscal year 2022 budget. Preserving reserves at that level will position Hopkinton extremely well if the economic recovery is slow or intermittent. I'm also recommending that we use less than the full amount of free cash available to us. Here's why. By appropriating 1.4 million in certified free cash for use in the operating budget, the town would preserve an additional 1.3 million in free cash that would be available for appropriation during fiscal year 2021 if needed. While the town has received a substantial grant under the CARES Act to cover COVID-19 expenses, that funding is currently set to expire December 31st. By preserving unappropriated free cash, the town would have the flexibility to appropriate those funds at the times and for the purposes needed in the second half of the fiscal year. If the funds are not needed, they will serve as yet another level of reserves available at the start of fiscal year 2022. An additional benefit of this approach compared to spending free cash to expand existing services is that it would limit the amount of one-time funding the town is using to balance the recurring operating budget. You would recall the Appropriations Committee over the last 3 years has sternly cautioned the town against this practice. Some may argue that with the additional funding from local aid and new growth, the town should restart its capital spending program or expand existing services. I counter that impulse by pointing out that we are in uncharted territory here. Even though our town is facing COVID-19 with considerable resilience, the path to recovery for the regional, national, and world economies is still very uncertain. Therefore, a cautious fiscal approach up to this point has served our community very well, and I advise that continued fiscal caution is the appropriate approach in this situation. One final issue remains under review, and that is the financial method for the Parks and Recreation enterprise. COVID-19 has highlighted some issues in how the community funds this important program. And it is possible that the Parks and Recreation Board and I may present you with a joint recommendation in the coming weeks. Keeping in mind that Parks and Recreation may see an additional adjustment, I respectfully ask and request that after the Select Board's consideration and discussion, the board endorse this revised plan, sending it to the Appropriations Committee for review and comment in preparation for the upcoming town meeting on September 12th.
Thank you, Mr. Kamalo. Board members, do you have any questions or discussion points? Mr. Nasrullah?
No real discussion points, but I just want to say I think the cautious approach is the way to go. I think it served us well, and I appreciate that everything that Mr. Kamalo is doing to keep us in the black and keep us afloat. So,
yep, thank you, Mr. Herr.
How are we doing with our colleagues in the school committee with respect to these revised suggested numbers?
Yeah, we had a conversation with the superintendent and the business manager, and this information is going to be communicated to the school committee at its next meeting.
And how, I mean, so I'm not deeply involved in everything the school committee and the superintendent are having to put up with right now as we try to get back to school here. I'm trying to figure out how this school year can be less expensive than last school year. I just don't see that necessarily. I'm not sure, you know, the quality of the education, there's all kinds of things we could talk about. So we want to make sure the school committee is on board like we got to in March, where everybody came together. We had a resolution kind of vote, and everybody went around the table and said, yes, this is what we agreed to, right? I think we have to get to that same place before town meeting this go around as well, even more so probably. Second point, and maybe you said it and I didn't hear it. Where is this with tax impact to the residents with this conservative plan you're talking about, not using all the stabilization? Because that was what was keeping the tax impact for new fiscal year taxes at an almost manageable level before.
Yeah, I think put simply, the fact that our new growth number is going up and we're keeping the expenditures level would have a positive effect on the tax impact.
Even with less stabilization in play?
Yes, because of the excess, the excess local, local aid, the excess local aid that we're receiving, substantially higher than what we had presented, Brian, by 5.4% over this year's last year, sorry, because we're now in August. Yeah. So
and by doing the first 3 months kind of individually, are you rolling these budgets into this 9-month budget to create the overall tax impact and measure it to make sure that it's fairly stable?
That is a good question, Brian. By the end of the day, we will be presenting a 12-month budget. So we're doing combine the 9 months and the 3 months.
Yeah, okay. So let's combine that, make sure that tax impact is reasonable. Everybody's going to have to be flexible what their expectations are for percentages and things like that, up or down a little bit. I think it's important that we get our school committee colleagues on the same page here and we get back together in a public meeting and have the roundtable and everyone walk around and say yay or nay to what we're talking about. Because we got to make sure that, you know, with all the challenges we have, and I think in many ways, Hopkinton has really risen to the challenge of COVID. The big unknown and the big, you know, what's next still sits at the schools across the street and how that's going to play out for our kids and certainly how it's going to play out for us financially. So we really got to make sure we work hard to keep everybody on the same page. Thank you.
Yeah. And again, I think, Brian, that's why we are leaving as much reserves available for the community to tap into even beyond December 31st, this fiscal year.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Lafreniere.
It's just such a hard situation. Do we have a time for the town meeting? I know it's September 12th, it's a Saturday, but do we have to decide what time?
I believe the start time would be either 9:30 or 10 a.m.
Okay.
All right. You good, Mary Jo?
Yeah, it's a tough situation. How are we doing with the boards that have non-financial things on the agenda? Have many of them said that they would be willing to put it off till May?
Yeah, yes, you're referring to, through the chair, you're referring to the annual town meeting warrant.
Yeah, planning board stuff and zoning stuff and things like that.
Yeah, the planning board met earlier this evening, and I believe Mr. Trendle may have an update for us.
Yes. So through the chair, we met earlier today and the planning board voted to not withdraw any of our articles. Just a little bit more background. We had a lot of discussion in particular with regards to the commercial solar overlay. That's over the past several months, that's resulted in a lot of interest from the town. There's multiple people that are impacted by it, multiple neighborhoods. And as a board, we felt that one in particular, given some sensitivity and urgency on timing and the interest from the community, felt that should stay on. And then with regards to the other 6 articles, that was actually a split vote, 4-4. And given that the motion was to withdraw the articles, that did not pass. I think in general, the belief of those that voted to not withdraw them was that we shouldn't be cherry picking articles, and that they're on there for a reason, and given that they weren't as complex, that it made sense to continue to move them all forward.
All right. Mr. Kamalo, anything else on that?
Oh, sorry, I still had.
Yep. No, I'm going to get to you, Amy. Give me 1 second.
We were also able to convince Peter Lagoy to remove the Trail Management and Coordination Committee's article, as well as the other administrative articles that come along towards the end of the warrant.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Ritterbush.
I'll just add on that vein that the growth study committee is going to meet next week and to vote whether to remove their article. And it seemed at the last meeting that we had, people were leaning that way, but we just need to vote.
Okay.
And then I had some questions too on the budget document. On the last page is the list of all the pay-as-you-go capital items. So those are all, looks like the vast majority are being recommended to be removed this year, including a lot of school articles like the roof replacement. Is that right?
Yeah, all the pay-as-you-go will be removed from the warrant.
Okay, I guess I would just want to make sure that all the committees are comfortable with that, because sometimes I don't want to make maintenance problems worse by putting it off too long, and sometimes it's easier to do things when times are slow to construction projects. So make sure that the committees involved are on board with those changes.
Yeah. That's a good point. And in fact, in our discussions, what we considered is that the annual town meeting is in September, and the next annual town meeting is actually in May, and we're already starting to plan for that. And we felt that time would not be long enough in terms of the projects that we had listed under pay-as-you-go.
Okay. I think just in the back of my mind, I never imagined when we went into the COVID quarantine in March that it would last this long. And I don't know, it may still last another 6 months or more. So what if the next town meeting is also delayed? That's just in the back of my mind. It's hard to predict. So
yeah,
just my thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. As part of our thinking, we also realize that if an urgent issue comes up in town, we have the resources and the ability to call a special town meeting. Okay. And we've done that successfully in the past.
And are we still on the budget, the discussion where we'll talk about town meeting, or just on the budget right now? Because I had questions about town meeting too.
Yeah, budget.
Okay.
So Amy, you do bring up a good point about what will happen in 6 or 8 months. I think a lot of it will be contingent on our outside world developing some type of vaccine and getting back to whatever will be acceptable. And we aren't fortune tellers, so, but that's definitely, we had a prior selectman that used to say, we can't just kick the can down the road. At some point, we will have to look at it, COVID or no COVID, but you bring up a good point. So I will request a motion to approve the FY21 budget as presented by Mr. Kamalu.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Could we add any language, like Mr. Hare said, we have to make sure the school committee is on board with their portion of it too? Or can the motion just be that we understand the school committee will be brought into the discussion next week, or how can we?
Yeah, yes, we will certainly be, again, as I said, we'll be circling back with our school colleagues. The point here is that the expenditure side of the school budget is not changing. On the revenue side, we're putting back the 900,000 that we're going to pull out of the school stabilization fund. That fund will continue to be in the school balance sheet held by the school committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need to amend the motion to reflect that we want the school committee's buy-in?
Or is
Mr.
that already
Kamalu,
part of the
is
process?
motion in order, or
Yeah.
do we need to amend it?
Yeah, my suggestion is that the authority of approving the budget lies with the select board. The practice of consulting with all stakeholders is part of our process. And I'm assuming that it's expected that we will be consulting with the school department.
Okay,
Right.
so we could make a change later if appropriations or school committee had a modified recommendation, right?
Oh, yeah, clearly that's the process. We go through
Then-
the cycle. Yeah.
Right, that's fine then.
All right, so Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
That's really yes.
Mr. Herr?
Or yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Lafreniere, yes.
Ms. Ritterbush?
Ritterbush, yes.
Gladstone, yes. That is great. So we will move on to the, let's see, Mr. Kamala, what are we on now?
The annual town, yes, annual town meeting. And my suggestion to the chair is that perhaps we divide the discussion into two. There's the piece that relates to reducing the annual town meeting quorum.
Yep.
Our intention tonight is for the board to start this discussion together with the town moderator. And if agreeable, then we'll schedule a meeting next Tuesday that will allow the board to take whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the last part you said there, Mr. Kamalu.
Yes, the last part being that if the board is inclined to consider reducing the quorum, we will schedule that meeting for a formal vote, or that discussion for a formal vote next Tuesday night. However, tonight is just to begin the discussion with the town moderator. I believe he's here tonight and can introduce the topic. And then the second part of the meeting will be for the board to begin going through the warrant.
Josh, if you could liven up the mics of Mr. Garabedian and probably Mr. Deegan as well. Thank you. So Mr. Garabedian, welcome. Mr. Deegan, welcome. I see you're both here. Let's see, Connor, you are muted. Is Mr. Garabedian? He looks like he's muted. He's unmuted. All right, Mr. Garabedian, how are you? Good evening.
Doing well, thank you.
Thank you for your time. You want to talk a little bit about town meeting?
Yes. You know, with a working group that we've that Norman and some of the other town fathers have convened, we have recommended that town meeting be convened outside and specifically the weekend of September 12 and 13, the hope being that under a tent, the hope being that the meeting itself can be conducted and completed on the 12th. If the weather is so inclement on the 12th, then obviously the tent is still available and we conduct in the afternoon of the 13th. The goal is to finish up in either case, before we run into any mosquito issues and whatnot, and have a timely meeting. Part of the thrust of our group was to encourage the various town boards to limit the number of articles on the warrant in order to run a shortened meeting, get all of the important business of the town conducted, and defer those things that can be deferred until May of next year or to a special town meeting if so required. One of the opportunities that the state has legislated is the opportunity to have the select board dictate a smaller quorum. The experience of other communities who have done this has been that it hasn't been needed, but it's provided the flexibility to conduct the meeting in the event that fewer than the minimum quorum requirements have been met. We could actually run a meeting, if you can believe this, with 12 people. You're permitted to reduce the quorum by 90%. It would be my suggestion that we consider reducing the quorum by 25% or so, so that we could conduct the meeting with somewhere between 85 and 90 people. Again, it's our expectation that more people will attend and that the reduced quorum won't further limit the interest in our townsfolk in coming out and participating. But it gives us the flexibility to start the meeting on time, again, in hopes that we can conduct this in sort of record fashion and wrap up the important town business on Saturday, September 12th.
So, Mr. Garabini, if I could, the only question I have on that, and I love the thought of a Saturday town meeting. I love the thought that one of my biggest pet peeves since I've been going to town meeting is unless there's a monstrous item on the agenda for the town, is that we don't, it's embarrassing by the amount of people that show up to our town meeting to vote. And I know a lot of that is childcare and whatnot. I know that you said that it's going to be Saturday morning, September 12th, weather permitting. Outside, I imagine that that's at the high school or on the turf field, probably.
In front of the high school.
In front of the high school. So what happens in the case that 8,500 people show up?
Then I'm going to turn to Mr. Kamalo and to Mr. Deegan and say help. I mean, we're planning, anticipating a crowd of around 200 to be accommodated under the tent. We're planning to accommodate more than that outside of the tent, sort of overflow expectation. If we have 300 or 400 or 500 people, we have a problem. It's something that our group needs to consider and question whether there is anything on the warrant that is likely to bring out a crowd of that type, of number. On the one hand, on the other hand, you've got the COVID situation, and I think even though we're outside, some people naturally will not be comfortable participating.
So conversely, if we change our quorum and we say we can run it to 90, we can, our quorum can be 75. Where does that stand in relation to the governor's rule that we can have no get-togethers of greater than 50 people?
If I may, Mr. Chair. So the governor and the Department of Public Health actually released different rules for town meetings. So they're actually different than other outside gatherings, so long as the social distancing requirement is kept. That is the document that Sean McAuliffe and the fire department, emergency management have been working on us with. We're trying to do it on the more stricter side than what's on that, but that gives us a lot of wiggle room on how we can kind of figure out the number. So we can go over that current 50-person limit for outside gatherings.
Assuming that you're using the social distancing.
Correct. As long as everyone is at least 6 feet apart, and then because it's outside 6 feet apart, we're still going to require mask wearing just to make sure that we don't have any issues with it. I know some towns have done it so that people can just take off their masks to speak into the microphone and then put it back on to go back to their seats, or however we do it.
So I guess at what point, not to play devil's advocate, but I'm pretty good at it, is so if we're requiring 6-foot social distancing, we're allowed greater than 50 people. What happens if we get an abundance of people that come to this and we can't fit them? What makes do we have the ability to turn people away? And I can't imagine the social media firestorm that would happen if we had to turn people away for this.
We cannot turn people away. We would just have to expand the amount of space that we had.
Okay, you've got it all covered. You know where you got to.
We'll bring some of these questions as well to Bill Miller's been working very closely with us, and Tom Poirier, to make sure that we're getting all of this done, have all of our ducks in a row.
Good.
We'll bring those concerns to them, make sure that we address it as well.
And how about any type of, have you thought about doing any type of like a pre-registering to kind of get an idea of who would be there, who would not be there? Just kind of a gross idea of what to expect?
No, I have not looked into
Not
that.
at this point. I mean, we need to pin down the date and begin to communicate the date before attempting to get a sense of the number of people who are going to participate.
I did have some
I'm done.
suggestions too. Okay.
Yes, Ms. Ritterbusch, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've been thinking about this the last couple of weeks, and I agree the priority is to get the date and time decided so people can know. But I noticed the moderator had a deadline for when he wanted PowerPoints. I was wondering if those could all be put together in a slideshow, and HCAM will run it periodically so everybody can see the slideshow presentations in advance. And if there's some method for reducing questions, like that people could submit their questions somehow in advance and they can be written up and responded to in some kind of FAQ sheet in advance. I just want to reduce the amount of time we're spending together in such a large group.
Well, the best way to reduce how much time we spend together is limiting the number of articles that we have. And the best way to do that is for have everybody to cooperate and understand that this is a public safety issue and a public health issue more than anything else. And for our colleagues on the planning board to not recognize that and go forward with all their articles, including those that would bring out the neighborhoods, quote unquote, I find to be very disappointing, and I think is possibly very problematic.
But to Ms. Ritterbusch's point, I think it's a good idea. I mean, if there's a way to get as much advanced information out there and frequently asked questions and something, and answers to it as well, that, hopefully we can move this thing along. I don't disagree with what Mr. Herr is saying, but if having some kind of information out there, hopefully could speed things along.
And can we even require people to submit questions in advance by a certain deadline? I don't know. No.
Unfortunately or fortunately, voters have the privilege and right of being able to speak at town meeting whenever an article is up for discussion.
Okay.
We can encourage it. And that's something we can look into and get back to you on.
Okay. And can we reduce the amount of time each person can speak? I suppose.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bring your stopwatch.
We're gonna have to
I have the stopwatch.
Okay.
I'm good with it. Any other questions, board? Hearing none. Mr. Kamala, what do we do here? Should we make the motion?
Yes, we're looking for direction from the board to whether you would like to reduce the quorum so that we can set up the meeting for next Tuesday.
Okay, so discussion. Mr. Nasrullah, what are your thoughts?
I like the idea of reducing the quorum. If we have the authority and everyone is saying we do, yeah, I would say if we could reduce, I'd reduce it down to like 25 people if we can.
Okay. Mr. Herr?
I think it's all about public safety and public health, and if reducing the quorum increases, the protection of both public safety and public health for this town meeting and this town meeting alone, I would support the idea.
Ms. Lafreniere?
I also support the idea. I think that for public safety reasons, we need to do it.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
I'm fine with us reducing the quorum, but I think with the articles on the warrant, I don't think it's going to be necessary. So I'm happy to go with the moderator's recommendation to reduce it.
Yep, and I feel the exact same way as Ms. Ritterbusch. It's nice to have that safety blanket. I've always complained that, it's bothersome when we're scraping for a quorum to spend millions of dollars, and that there's sometimes less than 100 people there, or now less than 150 people there to decide the fate of the 18,000 people in town. But it's a nice safety blanket to be there that says we can continue. So I am good with that as well. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
At our last meeting, there was some discussion about the town manager reaching out to town council and perhaps the attorney general's office to see, because we're in a state of emergency at the statewide level and at the town level, if there's anything that the select board can do with respect to limiting the number of warrant articles, despite some of the decisions other boards and committees make. Mr. Kamalo,
Mr. Kamalo?
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Hay, we did look into that, and Ray concluded that the select board did not have the authority to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, and when is the deadline to remove articles?
I'm sorry, Amy?
Oh, so when is the deadline to remove articles from the warrant? Not all the boards have met yet.
I'll give you that date. I think it's okay. Signed warrant August 25th.
August 25th is the last date.
Okay.
So there might be more removed. So.
Okay. All right. So we are reducing the minimum required quorum to 75, correct? Is that what we said?
No, at this point is simply setting up the discussion next Tuesday, and the board will make that vote on the number.
Okay. Okay. So we don't need a motion for that apparently?
I believe, Elaine, there's a motion to direct staff to schedule the meeting next Tuesday.
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see where that is. I do not have a motion for that. The only motion I have is the reconsider ATM date. That's my next motion.
2 motions down from that.
All right. Yep, you are correct. I request a motion that the select board vote to deliberate at its meeting scheduled on Tuesday, August 25 about a possible reduction in the quorum required for the annual 2020 ATM. Such a reduction being authorized by Section 7 of Chapter 92 of the Acts of 2020, and further to request the presence of the town moderator for that deliberation, as he is required pursuant to said Section 7 of Chapter 92 to approve of any such reduction.
So moved.
So that is my motion.
So moved.
Okay. Anyone want to second it?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Herr?
Herr, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Lafreniere, yes.
Mr. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
Headstone, yes. So that carries. So the next is the motion to change the ATM date. Mr. Kamalo, am I good to just go ahead and make that motion now?
Yeah, please go ahead. Again, the date has been identified as September 20th.
Yep. So I request a motion to, no, yeah, I request a motion that the select board, having previously voted pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, subsection 9, to delay the annual town meeting from May 4, 2020 to September 21, 2020. Vote to reschedule the annual town meeting delayed commencement date to September 12, 2020 at 0900 hours. That's 9 a.m.
So moved.
I think first you need the motion to reconsider the previous date.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I move to reconsider the select board's vote on June 16, 2020 to delay the annual town meeting to September 21, 2020.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. How do you vote, Mr. Nasrullah?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Frenier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbush?
Ritterbush, yes.
Headstone, yes. So now, let's see.
So we already have the first
The
motion
second motion?
and the second, so
Okay.
do we need to redo that?
I don't think that we do. Mr. Kamala, we're good with that motion that's read, right? September 12 at 09?
As long as the minutes reflect that as the motion was read previously.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
Just wanted to clarify that 9 o'clock is the preferred time. I thought someone had said 9:30, 10 earlier.
I think we can set it at whatever. Mr. Garabedian, you good for 9 o'clock?
I'm good for 9 o'clock. I guess the only question would be whether, does that impose any burden on people who would be setting up in that morning to be there? It causes the registration and whatnot to be even earlier than it would be if you set 9:30 or 10 in the morning.
Okay. I thought I heard 9 o'clock. So why don't you tell Mr. Garabedian, what time do you want to have it?
Let's set 9:30 in the morning and go with that.
Okay. So a friendly amendment to the motion, rather than 9 o'clock, have it start at 9:30. Is everyone good with that?
That's accepted on my end.
Okay.
Moved it.
Good. So, Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Her?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Frenier, yes.
Ms. Ritterbush?
Ritterbush, yes.
Headstone, yes. So that carries. Thank you. We have anything else on the docket for that?
One final comment.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned that we have the tent for the weekend and that we should be advertising this as rain or shine. However, if it's obviously going to be dangerous to be conducting the meeting on the 12th due to whatever the weather circumstance is, we will plan to conduct the meeting the following day. But, light rainstorm, we're going to go forward. Something more inclement, thunder and lightning, strong winds and so on, we're going to make a decision that morning to push it to the following day.
Wouldn't it be ironic if there was a tropical storm Mary Pratt run through the on the 12th?
I'd love it.
So yes, so duly noted on that. So with the September 12th, if there are adverse conditions that require cancellation, the rain date would be Sunday, September 13th.
Yes.
Good. And that's in our motions. So good. Thank you very much, Mr. Garabedian. Appreciate your time. Have a great night.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to the drought water supply update following the declaration of a mandatory state of water supply conservation. The board will receive an update from the DPW, Mr. Westerling, and the water and sewer manager, Mr. Cardy, on water supply and conservation. Mr. Westerling and Mr. Cardy, thank you very much for your patience. We're sorry we're running so late, but the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Just offering an update on the drought in the town's water supply for the select board and for the public through the chair. We're currently in a state of significant drought as determined by the Drought Management Task Force. We are at nearly a 7-inch deficit for rainfall for the year, and the 10-day forecast shows no appreciable rainfall. The Hopkinton Reservoir's level is dropping, and Ashland has already had to cut back on the amount of water that they are able to supply to us. We are receiving calls from residents with private wells that have run dry, and they're asking if they may connect to the public water supply system, which we are allowing if they are in close proximity to the water main. And the levels of our aquifer are dropping, and we've had to cut back on the pumping rates of our wells. We wish to remind residents that there is a mandatory state of water conservation, which became effective July 20th of 2020. And we remind residents that watering of lawns, vehicle washing, filling or topping off of pools, and other non-essential water uses are prohibited. The watering of flowers, gardens, and shrubs may be watered by hand before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m. And we urge all residents to continue to conserve water so that we may protect this precious resource.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Westerling. And this summer could not be easy on you or Mr. Cardy. It's been an insane, dry summer. I know Milan, which since I've become a select board member, has not seen a sprinkler for fear of not doing the right thing and or neighbors turning me in. But all around the country has been insane with this drought stuff going on. So the only silver lining is I'm really, really hoping that we get crushed with snow this winter, or that we have a very wet fall. So thank you, Mr. Westerling. Mr. Cardy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, just John covered pretty much everything there. I just would like to add, the one thing I would add is that people have been very good. I'd say we're at, good 97% compliance rate. We've been out checking and leaving notes, and it is the neighbors who always call that remind us of the few people that haven't heard of what's going on yet. So for the most part, though, everybody has been complying, which is good. I also attended an emergency meeting with the Board of Health last Friday, and as we did back in 2016, they've also regulated the use of the private wells because of the critical nature of the drought that we're in.
Excellent. Mr. Cardy, I thank you very much for all your work over the years, and you've always been a very calming force. No matter what was in front of you, you always speak in the same monotone, calming voice, whether it be a drought or a crazy scene on the ice at a hockey game. I always appreciate your level-headedness. So thank you for everything that you do for us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
I had a question if I could.
Yes, go ahead, Amy.
I just wondered, you mentioned that private wells are affected also because they're usually not. Is that correct? Or they'll be told by the Board of Health if they're affected?
I think they usually are.
Huh?
I remember very recently that there's been a lot of complaints about neighborhoods where they're, opposing, saying that they can't, that the town can't tell them that they can't use their wells. But I'll let Mr. Cardy, Mr. Westerling answer that.
So through the chair, the Board of Health took that action because just like the aquifer that supplies water to our public water supply wells, that same aquifer is lowering for the private wells. And we run the risk of folks that have a private well of running that well dry. It also affects your neighbor's well. Should you have a well that's a little deeper than your neighbor's and you continue to pump and your neighbor's well is shallow, you may be affecting the aquifer levels in their wells. So that's why we were happy for the support from the Board of Health, the actions that they took regarding private wells.
I think that's really great. And so the people who have private wells have been notified about this change, or they're just going to see it in the press?
Through the chair, Eric, do you know the vote that the Board of Health took? Are they going to be notifying residents?
Through the chair, I did see a public release through the media. I believe they sent it out, and Josh had sent it out on all the public social media for the town.
Okay,
Maybe we can get
I'll
that
try to
on
spread the word as well.
We can get that on the town website. Great.
I just
Go
want.
ahead, Mary Jo.
Yeah, I just want to ask Eric, there are penalties, mandatory state of water supply conservation. First offense is a warning, second offense is $100 fine, and third offense, you may turn off their water service. So I think people should be aware that these fines and these things are out there. They try not to use them, but they are aware. They should be aware of them. They can.
Yep. So I remember going back and round and round and round and round on this, saying that it should be a way higher fine. But
Yeah.
yes, I remember this conversation well. We're not allowed to fine them anymore. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate your time, and go do your rain dance on your way out to your cars. Mr.
Thank you.
Kamalu, how about a town manager's report? Quick one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Two quick updates. One, Main Street Corridor Project. The just compensation payments are being processed. I think the first ones went last week. Dave is working on the second batch now. The bid process has been, the opening has been moved to August 25th. It's been moved a couple of times to Mr. Hess Angst. And then we're continuing to work with 2535 Main Street developer with regard to the undergrounding and how it impacts their property. Any questions?
Nope, none
Okay.
from me.
And through the chair, Mr. Hare, you'll notice we've come up with, I hope you agree with this description. It's the hiring freeze exception request.
So why don't I go ahead and make that, Mr. Kamalu? I will request a motion to allow the hiring of a firefighter, paramedic, and lieutenant in the fire department, and a water division foreman and water technician in the Department of Public Works.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Freddie, yes.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
Ed Stone, yes. That carries. Thank you. Mr. Kamalu, is that it on the town manager report?
That's it.
Excellent. Liaison reports. Any members have anything to report? Mr. Nasrullah?
Thank you. Already saw the press release, but the Upper Charles Trails Committee got a grant for $111,000 for engineering for this connection to the school trails.
Awesome. Great. Mr. Herr?
Nothing.
Nothing. Ms. Lafreniere?
Yeah, on the list that we got, I don't think I did Parks and Rec. I think that Irfam did that, and I know Irfam said he would do Council on Aging. So
All right. So why don't we,
make those corrections.
maybe we can just, it's probably
Am
just
I
a
right?
Scrivener's error. We can get with Elaine or whomever, put that out and we can clarify
Okay.
that. Amy, do you have anything?
I do. The planning board is working on their master plan action items. They did a master plan, I think, last in 2017, and now they want to, and so the select board had several action items in there. So what I'm going to suggest is that I maybe meet with Elaine and someone from the planning board and try to come up, just give them the action item statuses, and then I might come back to this board with questions if maybe some of our goals we put in we didn't really want to do after all.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Is that it? Did
That's
you have
the
anything?
liaisons.
Good.
Yep.
Good. And I had none. We had an open space meeting, but it was at the same time as our last select board meeting, so I did not get to go to that. So, but we are chugging away on that. So let's see. So any future board agenda items? Mr. Nasrullah?
None.
Mr. Herr?
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Lafreniere?
No, nothing. Thank you again.
Ms. Ritterbusch?
Yes, so the MAPC has put out this pledge to take action on systemic racism that they're inviting towns and boards to in the region to sign on to. So I wondered if we might put that in the next packet and we could talk about and discuss if that's something we want to do or not. You could agree to it with some modifications.
Absolutely. I think that I don't know any board member, past or present, that would be against having a discussion on how to quell racism or anything of the sorts. And I think I'd like to throw on, Mr. Kamalu, if you could explore with town council or with us or whomever, however we'll get to the answer. So in the future, when we had that contentious item that we spoke of earlier on public forum, public meeting, you can kind of get some hard rules and regs on identifying, the need to identify or not identify anonymously or not anonymously, and some criteria as how we might move forward with that. Don't spend a lot of time on it, but just something to think about. I like the meetings to go a little bit smoother than what they did tonight. So if we have nothing else, I will request a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn,
Go ahead, Mr. Kamala.
yeah, before we adjourn, I just want to mention to the board that next Tuesday, we'll be going through the motions document. And therefore, we will be sending out that document for your review, for your comments. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us ahead of that meeting.
So if you could get that out as soon as possible, I am leaving for vacation on Saturday morning. I would like to get the lion's share of whatever I have to do with reviewing and whatnot done prior to my vacation. So if you can get that out post haste, I would appreciate that.
Great, thank you.
Do we have a time for the 25th for Tuesday? I'm just thinking I scheduled a growth study committee meeting for that night, but
What time is your growth study committee meeting?
it's 7, but maybe I could push that later, 7:30.
Well, we can work with you. Norman, how long do you suppose this meeting's going to be on Tuesday?
2 hours.
How about Amy, if we scheduled it for 5 o'clock? First of all, are the board members available at 5 o'clock for a meeting?
That's okay for me.
If that's the case, do you think you can push your meeting back for half an hour or so?
Yeah, I think that'll be fine.
Is that amenable to everybody?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay,
Great.
5 o'clock it is.
Thank you.
So now I believe we have a motion and it has been seconded to adjourn this meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Nasrullah, how do you vote?
Nasrullah, yes.
Mr. Herr?
Yes, good night.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Frenier, yes.
I'm always happy to say that name when it's at the end of the meeting. Ms. Ritterbusch?
Ritterbusch, yes.
Ted
Hey,
Stone,
right.
yes. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Night.